My family and I are in the process of building our dream mountain home. Not long ago, we bought a half-acre property in the mountains of beautiful Bryson City, North Carolina, and we're now planning on building our own home from scratch without any experience. We've been busy designing our home and figuring out what our first steps are going to be.
You may be able to build a little wall here and then excavate that area.
But this week we get some unexpected news that leads us to question if building our home on this property is a good idea.
If I was gonna live in a house forever for it, I probably wouldn't do it that way, but it's cost them another $20,000.
It's less than perfect.
Today was definitely a tough one. Good morning, Isabella. It's kind of cold.
Today is a big day. I'm heading to the property to meet our first excavation company that we're meeting with. And we're going to be talking about what we need to do to the property to get it ready to build. I'm excited. Let's head to the property. When my dad and I came here last, we flagged out the old house design onto the property, but we have a new house design now. Remember, we worked with somebody to make the house more shallow, and that's gonna allow the foundation to not extend much into the fill section of this build site. So I basically just gotta measure and flag out the new dimensions for the new house plan. So I'm gonna do that now before the guy arrives. Now, we had worked with a house designer to reduce the depth of the house to 23 feet based on a rough estimate of what the ideal depth would be for the property. But after flagging out the house, I realized that to avoid getting the foundation into the deep fill on the property, that I would need to have the backside of the house pretty much right up against the cut in the hillside, which is far less than ideal, and creating a buffer between the house and that cut would be essential. So I added that to the list of questions I wanted to ask Cody, the excavator. My big question with this property, we've got this slope. The big thing I'm wondering about is how we can stabilize it, right? Like, it's obvious that it's eroding, you know. And then also, if it's possible to expand the build pad. You can see there's some rocks at the top of the hill there. That's the edge of this road. And so as far as I can tell, the big issue with getting further this way would be, making sure that that road has plenty of earth to support it.
You don't want to get into nothing that's gonna absolutely compromise that road. Like, you grab a boulder here, move it, and you don't want nothing up there moving.
And one idea that Zach had, because he was saying that a big part of the expense of stabilizing the slope would probably be having to truck away the material. And so he was saying maybe we could do like a 4-foot retaining wall and then slope back from that.
Back there, we could lay that back. I wouldn't be so worried about that. But this side here, you don't got much room to lay back. You've got a little bit of room, but not a whole lot.
Cody explained to me that there really isn't enough room to expand the build site on the left-hand side of the property because it's so close to that road. But the right side of the property has plenty of room for expansion if we're willing to pay to have that dirt removed.
What do you want space-wise behind the house?
It'd be nice if we had about 6 feet between the house and the wall to get machinery back here.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, is if you can leave room, like, it doesn't have to be a large machine, to something where if you have to come back here and work on something, you've got that ability, and it gives your house some room. I do think hauling material out of here will get expensive. If you're good with it, maybe price the wall.
So you're saying that in terms of removing material, the cost might be comparable to just doing a wall.
Right. Yeah. Or if it's even close, does it make sense just to do the wall? Is it longer lasting? Is it gonna give you a better finish? I think it totally will, given the parameters of the cut and the road above.
So when it comes to excavation, actually knocking down dirt off of a hillside is relatively fast and cheap as long as there is somewhere nearby to put all that dirt. In our situation, because we're not allowed to put fill dirt over the septic system that takes up most of the downhill section of our lot, we actually don't have anywhere to put all that dirt. And trucking it away is actually pretty expensive because you have to pay for large commercial trucks to first fill up with dirt and then make a lot of trips to a dump site, and that can take a long time. So even though building a retaining wall would also be pretty expensive, the idea of sloping the cut back until it was stable could cost the same amount of money as a retaining wall.
Even grading some of this back wall to me is a little bit safer. It gives you room to actually grade this, make this right where we can get water running off of it, catch a lot of the water running back this way, and just set you up for a good build.
So Cody recommended that the next step would be to meet up with Zach, the structural engineer, since he would actually need to design the retaining wall if we did decide to go that route. All right, so if you are looking for an excavation company or a contractor to build a house, and if you're in Western North Carolina, definitely hit up Cody. He's awesome. What's the name of your business?
Ellis Earthworks, ellisearthworksnc.com.
Okay, yeah, definitely hit him up. Otherwise, thanks a lot, man.
Yeah.
Looking forward to doing this. It's gonna be great. Let's go get your baby sister. Good morning, Scarlett. Good morning, Oso. Oh my gosh, good morning.
We are gonna go down to our favorite diner in Bryson City. I'm excited because we haven't really shown my mom around town, so I'm excited to show her where we're gonna live. I'm also trying to convince her to move up here, so I really want her to like it.
So that's the Tuckasegee, CO.
Wow.
What do you think, CO?
It's cute, cozy, and the people here are so nice. So far, so good.
Isabella, how's your coffee? Whoa. Man, I can't believe Scarlett's asleep.
I know, thank goodness, knock on wood. This is rare for us to all be sitting down at the same time and have a meal together. Hallelujah.
You're sure she's in there, right?
90% sure.
Yeah.
Oh, nice, you're back.
Cheese.
Good to see you again. Check it out.
What you got in there?
I got a 2XL jacket so I can zip her all the way up. Boom. We are going to see the property. So for me, this is the first time I'll see it in person, which is kind of crazy. I'm excited.
CO, I like where your head's at. Isabella, you want to go for a ride?
Woo!
Okay, what do you think, bud?
Wow, it's way higher than I thought it was. You don't feel it when you're watching it on video, but
Yeah.
it is steep. I just walked Scarlett down there and woo, got a leg workout. A little bit smaller of a build site than I thought, but the view is like prettier than I thought. And like, I love the area. I love how close it is to town. I really, really like it.
Isabel, this is your front yard. This is where you're gonna play.
So where does the property end down here?
So the property goes from, do you see that green stick with the pink ribbon? Over there, and then this one here.
Oh, interesting.
One issue is that if we were to do a fence, which I really wanna do, it would be about here.
Yeah.
But the leach field for the septic is right there, and the expansion area for the septic or the repair area is right here along the property line. We can't build a fence on the repair area, so we might have to buy this bit of land from our neighbor so that we could have the fence go along the edge of everything.
It's so crazy, like when you filmed it, this looks so much flatter.
I know.
You know?
Yeah, it's less than perfect in a lot of ways. You know, I wish we had a flat yard. The build site is small and it would be very hard to expand it. But at the same time, if we just sort of lower our expectations, like the location is amazing. The reason that I love this area so much is we're 5 minutes away from the national park and then 5 minutes away from downtown Bryson City. So I think it is the best location in this entire region. So we're gonna head up into the national park and do some hiking. There's Deep Creek.
I love the sound of flowing water. It's so nice.
Yeah, I know, it's totally beautiful here. And especially when there's leaves on the trees and everything, it'll be even nicer. And this creek is really popular with tubing. So people in the summer will bring inner tubes, come up here, and then float all the way down. And we could float to like right next to the house and then like walk home basically. And then these trails here link up with the entire trail network of the national park. So we could set off on multi-night backpacking trips from here. And so this is the closest waterfall here.
Oh, wow. Tom Branch Falls. I'm just getting emotional because I'm thinking about bringing the girls here, you know, on a hot summer day and having them play around in the water. It's really cool. This is going to be their life. I feel a very strong sense of accomplishment for getting here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but this is our backyard now.
Yeah, pretty nice. Using the fishing pole, he's going to catch a fishy. So what do you think, Ma?
It's very pretty,
Yeah.
very natural, and I can see why you love it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good job,
what
Isabella.
a good cutesy. Are you walking with Abba and Dada? What a good walker you are.
So longtime viewers know that Oso here is definitely the most hardcore member of our family. He's hiked up mountains, sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, and has lived on 3 different continents. He's had so many awesome adventures and has brought so much joy to our lives. But now that we've got a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old, we really don't have the time to focus on his needs like we used to. And while most dog food out there really isn't that healthy, taking the time to make his food ourselves is just not realistic. And that's why we love the sponsor of today's episode, Sundays for Dogs. Sundays is made with 100% human grade ingredients. And unlike typical kibble, which is cooked at a really high heat and stripped of a lot of its natural ingredients before being injected with synthetic additives, Sundays for Dogs uses a gentle air drying process that keeps all the good stuff intact so they don't need to insert any junk. It's real food, naturally preserved, and easy to serve so that Oso can stay healthy, energized, and ready for whatever adventure comes next. So if you've got a furry adventurer in your life, definitely check out Sundays for Dogs. Click the link in the description below and use code Atticus to get up to 50% off your first order. All right, good morning. So I'm back at the property today. I'm gonna be meeting with Zach, the structural engineer that we met last week, as well as Cody, the excavator. We're gonna be talking about what we're going to do with this cut in the hillside. The real question is gonna be how we strike a balance between building a retaining wall versus just sloping the cut back into the hillside, because retaining walls are great, but they're really expensive. Whereas cutting into the hillside to just make a gentler slope is a lot less expensive, except we don't have anywhere on the property to put all of that dirt. And so it looks like we're probably gonna do a hybrid approach where we're gonna do a short retaining wall up to a certain point and then slope the hillside back from there. As we had discussed previously, you had said you recommend 6 to 8 feet behind the house. One of the questions would be, if we do this retaining wall, cutting the slope back combo, could we gain, 6 feet from the current position of the flags?
You could probably step another 3 foot this way and here, and then step another 3 foot again at the end.
This side can get that 6 foot
Oh yeah,
clearance, maybe even plus some.
You see where the bottom or this vertical piece is? You had all the erosion that's created a slope. If you just envision
That slope
all this
continue.
gone and that slope being vertical, that's kind of what we're thinking about wall.
So the best way to think of it would maybe to almost divide the house into thirds. Not really. It'd be like this half of the house should be narrow, and then we could have a deeper bit and then a very deep bit.
If you could step this in 6 foot, this corner's a little tricky because it would be like we'd want to come from nothing, and I think you would want to get tall here just looking at it without being able to have a lot of room to grade behind it. Then you could really hold this. You could bring the wall just a fuzz out. It could actually be where the flag is, and then you got a little 4 foot tall wall. Yeah, and that's catching here. You could probably you can get a little ditch on the backside of it too, catch any water coming off and around.
We can slope this out, no problem. That's not a cost at all compared to hauling this dirt out anyway. Just assuming this wasn't gonna go back anymore, haul out, we can waste whatever dirt we have for this going on the wall, probably right up here.
If we don't cut into this at all.
Right.
Yeah. What we've discussed is reducing the depth of that side of the house by 6 feet and then keeping this side the same. It would be cool if we could increase the size on this portion of the house. Do you think that would be possible, and like that much dirt could fit here? I know these are all like complex questions.
I don't know.
I can figure all that out with a topo, survey, but you're into cost, right? Just on the planning side, I don't know. I wouldn't advise that here.
Yeah, and then my last question is, with all of this work, from your experience, like, is this much effort to get a property buildable, like, typical out here? Is this gonna be higher than normal?
Typically on the front end, you would grade the lot to where you don't have a bunch of cuts like this, which over here in this rock, that's kind of understandable, but where there's vertical slopes, you try not to do that.
My experience has been that there'll be a little bit better stable slope that's got some seed on it. But what I get into is they'll start digging footers all the way out and fill. And then they're like, I thought my house could fit here. I thought all this was good dirt. And then they're into a big engineering system that they're having to use to support their house. And then next thing they know, they thought they had this big flat pad that they could put their forever home on. And they've run into this fill slope scenario that's cost them another $20,000 for foundation remediation work. You look at it and you're like, man, I got this perfect buildable site. And you start really looking at the site and the constraints and where you can technically build, and it shrinks the lot a lot.
Well, and to that point, I mean, one thing that we're talking about is maybe, if it makes more sense, buy another property for our house and then build almost like a tiny house here that would just be pure rental. If we did do like a significantly smaller house, got it away from that cut, we could potentially just slope it back, potentially move a lot of that dirt over there, and the cost would be a lot less.
You definitely could. It's not like optimal. It's not a, if I was going to live in a house forever for it, I probably wouldn't do it that way. But if it's, if it's the ideal situation, for sure.
As we've been learning about this, that's, a path forward we've been seriously considering, because I think that the spot's killer with the view, and the location I think is really, really great. So
yeah, man, something 500-600 square feet up here, you could do the whole thing 18 by 32, and you could shift the whole thing this way.
Yeah, so then that steep bit wouldn't be
Yeah,
such
you're
an
not
issue.
contending over there. The house is in this section with the rock. You could still do the lean-to.
Well, I think that's it then. Yeah, thanks so much for coming out on a Saturday, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Work every day.
Yeah. I know,
It's every day. Yeah.
So Cody was telling me that he just built their house mostly by himself and then would bring in help when he needed it, which is very inspirational to know that it's possible. But this is his son laying some of the first block. Dude, he's a good worker, man. Thank you for coming out and helping. So my meeting with Zach and Cody honestly did not go as well as I was hoping. And basically we just learned a handful of details that are just not very good for the plans that we had with this property. So first of all, I learned that on the left-hand side of the property, because the road that goes above our property is so close to the build site and the cut in the hill, by the time that we make a retaining wall over there, which we really need to do, we're not going to be able to gain any more build site there. And if we want to have the house away from that retaining wall by at least 6 feet, that means that we're going to have to redesign the house to be even more shallow on the left half of the house, which is gonna be tough because we already kind of worked with our designer to make the house as shallow as possible. And also I got a cost estimate on what it would cost to build this retaining wall that we're talking about. And the guys basically decided that the wall would have to be a little bit taller than we were originally thinking. And it sounds like to do the wall right, like to build it really strong so it'd last a long time, it could cost upwards of like $30,000. Now, if this was our forever home, I might be okay with that. But the fact that our plan was to live in this house for, a couple years, find another property that would be our forever home, and then finally when we move to the new property, this property would become a rental, right? And so if it's going to be a rental, the whole point is that it makes more money than we spend on it. And so we gotta be really careful about how much money we pour into this thing. Which is why I think this idea of building a really small dedicated rental that would be too small for us to live in, but that we could rent out immediately, that is a pretty decent option, because by making such a small house, there's a lot more flexibility in how we stabilize that slope. And if through that process we actually lose some of the build site, that would be acceptable. And so the cost of stabilizing the slope at that point would be much, 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 much less. So long story short, today represented like a huge influx of new information that we've really got to think about, and think about like exactly how we want to move forward with the project.
All right, we are at Darnell Farms, and they're having a St. Patty's Day event for friends and family, locals to Bryson City, which we are now. So these two have got their green on. I have my green sweater in the car, but I think I'm gonna get pinched by the leprechaun. Is that what happens when you don't wear green? I don't know. We'll find out. Even though this week we received some unexpected bad news, we also learned something positive. We absolutely love the Bryson City area. It's going to be an amazing place for us to live adventure-filled lives out in nature, and it'll be the perfect place to raise our girls with a strong sense of community and appreciation for the outdoors. So even if things don't go exactly as we planned, that's sort of the whole point of this new stage of our adventure. We're in the process of learning about a whole new world that we know nothing about. And so I think as long as we stay flexible and open-minded, that our new life here is going to work out great, no matter what stumbling blocks we encounter along the way.
Desiree and I are off to look at some properties today.
Wow, look at this view.
I wasn't expecting to like this property this much, but I do.
It feels so private.
You could definitely cut into that more.
Waterfall on the way, not bad.
I don't want to get too excited about this property,
yeah.
but this is so nice.
It is really nice. I think we should put an offer in. Fingers crossed, goes through.